Hey guys, welcome to another Trade Genius podcast with Bob and Phil. The secret signal to tell us that the war in Ukraine is probably heading to a close has been fired. We're going to tell you what that is. So let's dive into this video.
Trade Genius.
So Bob, you've been sleuthing it again. I like this one because I always think the devils are in the details in those not so headlines. So can you explain to us why we basically have gotten the signal that this war is probably heading for a close?
Yeah, Phil, I think what really started me thinking about this was when the that last budget they just did, where they just threw another $45 billion at Ukraine.
Yeah.
And everybody's bitching and moaning about it, but now the Republicans really are going to control the House for the next 2 years. And I guarantee you they will allocate zero money for Ukraine. And so now the Biden administration is in a position now where do they allow their client state to get rolled in the next 2 years? Or do they negotiate some sort of settlement with Russia and then make lemonade out of potential lemons? Second part to this is Putin came out and said that, hey, I'm interested in negotiating a peace, and if you think about it, we're pretty much where everybody is going to be settled at anyway. He was never going to give up Crimea. He dropped nukes before he gave up his naval base there and his access to the Black Sea. Number one. And number two is that he's sitting on the land that he said was really Russian land. And so he has those, he owns them. And he's basically been carpet bombing the Ukrainian army now for the past 60 days in that area. And if you notice, you don't see anything anymore on the news about Ukraine, hitting Russians and all that other good stuff. It's over. And then he just laid waste to the infrastructure of Ukraine. So the only way the administration is going to be able to gather up any kind of money is that they're going to have to then bribe every corporation that sits in everybody's district, and you end up with the headline that we're seeing today. President discusses with CEO of BlackRock the coordination efforts to rebuild Ukraine. Well, you can't rebuild Ukraine unless you stop the war in Ukraine. So that, to me, that's a big duh, right? So, okay, so we're not going to spend any money rebuilding a country if we think Russia is going to next week pump cruise missiles into the infrastructure that we just built.
Right.
And that's number one. Then number two, then, Zelensky's been kind of a pain in the ass on this stuff, right? I'm not doing anything until Putin's dead and Crimea is ours. And next thing you know, he's sitting there talking to BlackRock about coordinating Ukraine investment. He's talking about joining the World Economic Forum, and he's talking about joining the World Bank. And so you don't do those things unless you've been tapped on the shoulder and saying, okay, you showed Russia that you're not a pushover. You still lost the land that you knew you were going to lose anyway. Now it's time for you to rebuild back the country, and we'll spend money on it. But there's no way you're going to get the Republican House of Representatives to come along on it unless they think this war is over. And so that's kind of my thoughts on that. And maybe I'll step back and maybe let you, get a word in edgewise here and see if you agree with that thinking or if you have any additional thoughts on that.
Well, I think this was, I didn't really catch this headline. You caught it, and I thought brilliant because, once again, these are the ones that should be front and center, but they're not. But they're the ones that really are market movers and really are things that are major pivots. But typically, you're not going to see them at the top of the headlines. And my thought on this too is that central banks live on debt, right? There's no debt, there's no central bank. And what's the greatest driver or generator of debt is usually war, right? So this is just another in a long line of conflicts that keeps the debt cycle going, right? So watch how eloquently it gets all wrapped up and everybody walks away. Look how much money BlackRock will stand to make and its companies, which was something that you had actually brought to my attention was, the portfolio of companies under BlackRock. So look, we're not going to be able to change this outcome. It's just going to happen. However, we're all in charge of our our own countries, and that's the countries of our households, right? And so when it comes to at least what we can manage our portfolios and things like that, and just make sure that our moat is full, and our defenses are in so much as a portfolio, and our own personal wealth are being taken care of. And one thing you can look at is, if this plays out, which more than likely it will, look at the companies that are under BlackRock. We're not saying that the minute they say that war is over, that these are just going to shoot up. Again, we fall back to when the bear market is likely going to turn the tide, and that's probably in the back half of 2023, and that's where you would look at these companies, and they're all going to benefit from what's going on with what BlackRock's doing, because BlackRock's making money. These companies indirectly will benefit from that. So this isn't, I think, this isn't everything under BlackRock, but this gives you an idea of everything they've got their fingers in. So take a look and focus in on those things, because look, make no mistake, BlackRock is a major force. I mean, look, the Federal Reserve meets with BlackRock. You know what I mean? They have a special seat at the table. So all we can do is ride coattails, and so this is one way of doing that. Is it right? You could argue that all day long, but it is the world we live in, and we have to be responsible for at least taking care of our own personal finances. And this is one way that you can do that when you know that this stuff's going to be, coming down the line. And, Bob, thank you for bringing that to our attention, basically.
Yeah, and you meant something too, if I can add on to it, is that this is, look, the Biden administration and the Democrats obviously want to get reelected in 2024, and they're not going to have a war that's going against them in 2024. At the same time, they're looking to basically to recreate a catalyst for world growth again. Nothing would say, okay, we got this thing under control now because, we cut a deal with Russia, we ended the sanctions, oil prices drop, natural gas prices stop, fertilizer prices stop, food prices go down. The stock market goes through the roof. I can look. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's just laying right there in front of us, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And me, I'm a big old energy bull. But if they start sniffing around and they clean that thing up, you be darn sure that you'll see energy prices collapse. If Russia has access to the world markets again without sanctions, and Europe's able to get this natural gas and from Russia, and now they have three other competitors, and nat gas prices will come back down to fight $2, and oil prices will fall here, and gas prices will fall, and you'll see the Democrats crowing. And you know what? And nothing I can do. I'll be like, really good politics, guys. You did it, and I think that's what they're going to aim for, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Look, Russia can't keep this up anymore, but neither can the West. Okay, and so I think we reached our détente, and I think you'll see it. I mean, look, Europe. I mean, I think those people, they can't even get out of bed. They're that beat up, and so So pay attention to this, guys. And I think, Phil, you said it. Third quarter probably we'll see the bottom. There's some people calling for bottoms in February and March in the stock market. I don't know about that, but I think we'll see a bottom in 2023 at some point. We'll see the top in interest rates in 2023, and then I think you'll probably see some sort of effort to resurrect things going into the next presidential election. That's my view. We could be wrong, but I think, Phil, you're probably leaning the same way I am on that.
Yeah, and you could see, let's say the February-March thing could happen and establishes basically the general low, and then you could bounce and then roll over kind of back to maybe a double bottom or something like that, where whatever low that's put in that first quarter probably gets tested again. But I think you and I are thinking, when do we start actually sustaining a move higher, start trending out? And that probably doesn't happen until the back half of 2023.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's it for this episode. Let us know what you think below. And please hit like and subscribe. Really helps us out. And we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Trade Genius.